up, Wastelanders? Christopher here, Gaslands, NorCal. Thanks for joining me once again for another conversion video. Now, over the past several weeks, I've been doing a different sponsor build. I think I've done 8 so far, so I'm a little over halfway through, so we're going to keep on with that. This week, we're going to shift over and go up into high gear and do a Miyazaki build. Now, for the Miyazaki build, I didn't want to just do like a muscle car like I normally do, so I'm going to do something a little bit more sleek and, I don't know, I'm not going to say stylish, but just smaller and faster and not quite as beefy as a muscle car. So for that, we're going to be using this 1994 Mitsubishi 3000 GT. I've got some really cool ideas planned out for this. I'm going to be using some different techniques, some different tools, some stuff that I've just started playing around with. Should be a lot of fun. So it should be a pretty interesting build, pretty interesting video. So let's get to it. But you know what we got to do first? We got to get this baby apart, get her to the stripper. Alright, so we're all primed up and ready to go, looking very good. Had some issues with the citrus strip recently. I'm not sure if they changed their formula or whatever. I just need to clean up my whole vat and redo it, but it's almost like it's eats into the metal a little bit, so it's not as perfect and smooth as like some of the, well, some of them are, like the hood's not as, the top is not as smooth as the hood. How's that? But still, it's fine. We're going to do a white base coat on this one, and it's primarily going to be white. I've got some really cool decals I'm going to be using on there. And I think having white is really going to make it stand, the decals stand out, so that's going to be cool. I'm going to be using Liquitex, which I've used once before, earlier this week on another model. I haven't used Liquitex before. From what I understand, it's supposed to be like high grade, everything else. My only issue with it, using it before, is that I had to really dilute it and thin it out to run it through my airbrush, which gets the smoothest coating and everything. And then the cleanup for it, pretty much any white, it just takes a long time to clean up. So that's really what I look for when I look at paints, is what's going to look the best, obviously, run the best through my airbrush, regardless of what airbrush it is, with the least amount of thinning and everything else, and then really with the least amount of cleanup, because that's always the biggest pain. You know, everything looks cool and you make a great model and everything, then you got to clean everything up. It's like having a party. You just want somebody to come over to your house and clean up afterwards. So let's get this thing all done up in the white. We'll let it dry. Still haven't figured out exactly what wheels or a weapon I'm going to use. I do have the idea for the armor, which is the new technique I'm going to show you, and for the detailing, the decals and stuff are going to look really cool. So let it get done up in the white, and then we'll go from there. So let's do it. Alright, so we're all painted up and ready to go. Really do like the white. It was a little bit difficult getting stuff cleaned up and everything like I talked about before, but in the end it worked out, and white really does open up a whole slew of different possibilities for painting stripes or decals or whatever you want to do. So even though it is a hassle and everything else, white can be a very cool base color. Rattle can works well as long as you can find the right one that's going to allow other stuff to go over it, but that's a whole nother series. So let's look at the Mitsubishi. So for the decals that we're going to be using, got this Japan flag with a country in the middle. It's going to be going on the top like that. Pulled off some lettering, some words. I'm not going to use the strength on the side, I'm just going to use the symbols. Putting those on the doors like so. This is going to be a badass car. For the wheels and the weapons, the wheels are coming from Creepy Hero. These things are going to fit in just perfectly all the way around on this one. It's going to give it a pretty good lift, not too high, and it'll fit just perfectly in the wheel well. So that's what we're going to do for those. For the weapons, I've got a bunch of different weapons printed off that I'm looking at using. I'm not sure which one is going to look right. I'll paint them and get them all detailed up, and then just kind of go through and take a look and see which one is just going to look the best, and will feel the best for this build. But we'll get them all painted up and everything, and just see how it goes. If I don't use them now, I'll use them later. So painting them up is not going to be that big of a deal. But the thing that I'm really kind of excited about is this new method that I've started doing that I haven't seen anybody else use. So I don't know, maybe I'm a pioneer, maybe I'm just lost in the sauce, maybe people are look at this and go, damn, that's a stupid idea, but I think it's pretty cool. I've used it on a few vehicles so far and it's worked out great, and it's using these gel nails. I know what you're thinking, you've lost your mind, dude, you're just out of it, your list gone. But this thing started scrolling through my Facebook feed and I couldn't understand why. So I just kind of took a look at it. I didn't click on the advertisement. I just did a little, research on it. And these are like home nail kits that people can use to give themselves gel nails. And they come in several different sizes. I got the toenail size. And what you do is, you get them all cut out in size to your toenail or fingernail size. Get them on there. Put them under a UV light for 2 or 3 minutes. They harden up. They're self-adhesive, so they stick just fine. And then you shape them with, emery board or whatever, and voila, you don't need to go to the salon. I mean, if you like, whether you like your salon person or not, I don't know. Anyway, so I saw that and I thought, this would be pretty cool as armor, or even, adding different shapes to a build. So that's what I've done, and that's what I'm going to do with these. I'm going for these, kind of square ones, I'm going to get them on the windows, and you can see it's just going to fit, kind of perfectly on the side there. They are very, very malleable. Kind of think of it like lead tape or aluminum tape, only you really have to use some force to leave a permanent mark on these things. I have done it, but you have to, kind of really give it some effort, whereas with the tape and stuff, you just barely scratch it and you've got that mark on there and you can't get rid of it or anything. But like I said, these things are very malleable. They're easy to cut and shape and everything. Stick them on there, and then stick them under a UV light for a couple minutes, and it's hard as a acrylic nail. I've done a couple different ways where I've painted it and let the paint dry and then apply it. I've also applied it, done the UV light and then painted it, and I think that's, for me anyway, that's the better method that I've found. Go through and do some rivets on there, get it shaped on there, and you can stick it and unstick it a couple times before it just stops working. But it works really, really well. These things are really stretchy. These smaller ones I've used for some window armor, and I've stretched them from like the top up here all the way down to the bottom. So they are very, very malleable. They work really well for all sorts of different things. So pretty excited to show this off and see what I can do with it, and maybe inspire somebody else to play with acrylic nails and gel nails, and you can get some more funny looks at the supermarket when you go and get Hot Wheels and gel nails and you're a 50-some-odd-year-old man. So yeah, we'll do that. But first off, we're going to get this thing kind of weathered up, washed up with some, we're not going to do Agrax this time because I don't want it to be that dark, but we are going to use, let's use some black wash, or maybe let's use some Nuln oil. That's what I'll do. I'll wash it with some Nuln oil, so it's just got that little bit of darkness to it. Get the nooks and crannies and stuff. We'll let that dry. Then we'll get the decals on there. We'll get the weapons and the wheels all painted up, and then we'll start looking at doing the gel nails. So let's Nuln it, and we'll go from there. Alright, so we all got the details and stuff on there, got the decals on there, the tail lights, put the strength on the back just because I thought it looked cool. So now we're ready to go and start getting everything else on there, including the armor. So that's going to be our next step. We get the armor on there before we do the wheels and stuff, just so we're not applying pressure needlessly on the glue points with the nails and everything else. So for the armor, like I said, on the back, I'm going to do this larger piece across the back here, and these smaller pieces across the sides. I'm going to take off this top film, put some divots in there, and then at least on the top part, I'll put it on here, and then kind of pull and stretch probably about midway down the door. So it's just going to be kind of like so. Now I'm going to put these on here before I paint them, just because, like I said, I found that's the easier method. But yeah, so it should be cool. I'll put them on there, and then we will put them under the UV light for about 2 minutes, let it harden up, and then we'll get them painted. But first, before we get any of that stuff done, let's go through and do a little bit of chipping, not too much because I want it to be relatively clean. So chip it up, get the armor on there, and yeah, we'll see where we go from there. So let's chip it, and then I will step you through the armor. Alright, armor's ready to go. I've taken the top film off of it. Not sure how long you can keep the top film off before they start getting hard. I mean, you really have to apply the UV lights for it to get hard, so I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. We can leave it up for a little bit. I'm going to take a hand drill and just kind of press around the four corners to do the rivets on the window ones, and I'll probably do some extra ones on the back window. Like I said, you have to press pretty hard to get the marks in there for them to stay. I pressed, really hard. I haven't pressed all the way through them. Not sure what that would do, especially after it hardens. I have pressed a hole in one, and then when I stretched it, it tore, which actually made kind of a cool effect. So I'm not really too worried about that. Now I've got the rivets on there, as you can see. So when I put it on there and stretch, they'll stay there, and then the UV light will harden it to the acrylic nail fracture point, stability point, I don't know what the hell it's called, and then I'll paint it up. So I'll get the rest of these done and get, put on the model. So let's go ahead and get this one stuck on there first, and you just kind of bend it and they peel off. And like I said, they are self-adhesive. It's not like a really strong, it doesn't feel like a strong adhesive, so at first I was like, is this really going to work? But it does. It's very, very cool. I'm going to stick it down here, like I said, about halfway, and even with that, it looks like it would go all the way up, but I do want to just kind of hold on to the bottom and pull and stretch a little bit, and then pull it across the top and press it down tight. And when I go through and stick that under the UV light, that will all harden up and, like I said, be very, very tough. And then we'll get painted and go from there. So that's what I'm going to do on the other side, do it on the back, but that's all there is to it. Once you paint it and everything, you've got, malleable, formable window armor for pretty cheap. I mean, that whole package of nails was only like $5, and there's a whole bunch of different sizes and everything in there. You can cut them. They're still, it still works really well. So as you can tell, I'm kind of excited about it. So let's go ahead and get the rest of this stuff on there, and then we'll get them painted, and we'll see where we're at. So let's stick it. Alright, there we have it. One 1994 Mitsubishi 3000 GT, repainted, reimagined, re-armored, re-weaponed, swapped out the tires and everything, ready for the wastelands. This thing, it was a lot of fun to build, very easy to build, just the white paints, a little bit of grime, a little bit of chipping. I hope everybody learned something with the armor. So easy to put on, so easy to use. Definitely doing more with this nail gel armor, adding it to future builds just because it's so easy to use, and I really want to kind of push the envelope and see what else it can do. Now let's talk a little bit about Miyazaki, since Miyazaki is the build that this one is intended for. Their primary perks are daring and precision, which means there's a lot of maneuvering, a lot of evading, shifting around, getting away from danger, getting ahead of the pack. If you're afraid of the big guns, definitely a sponsor for you, but you're not looking at anything that's going to be running lower than I think they can't have anything with a handling lower than 2. I don't think they have 2. I think it's like 3 or higher. So no trucks or anything else. So if you don't want anything big and muscly and beefy, Miyazaki is definitely the one for you to get you out of a jam and get you ahead of the pack, away from danger and everything else. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, do me a favor, hit that like button. My goal is to do weekly videos, whether they're vehicle builds, terrain builds, battle reports, whatever. So if that's for you, hit the sub button below and ring the bell to get notified when new content drops. I do sell all my builds pretty inexpensively on my Etsy page, so if you want to pick something up, see what else I've done, you can even request a custom build. If you'd really like to show some love, head on over to my Patreon page and get signed up. Every bit helps keep the paint flowing, the printer printing, and the camera rolling. Until next time, keep your foot on the gas and your finger on the trigger. Gaslands, NorCal, signing out.